Okay, after this coffee break, let's start this last panel discussion for the morning. We are going to discuss on the cost and benefits of implementing the SRI. Since this morning, we had very good presentations from the projects on what they have developed, the tools, the training programs, the recommendations, a lot of interesting also aspects from the member states. But with this panel discussion, I would like to go back to the fundamentals of the SRI. So why are we implementing this new scheme? For what benefits? And of course, if we talk about benefits, we also need to talk about costs. So next, please. So it's my pleasure to introduce the speakers that are going to participate in this panel discussion. We have Buntan Iya from DG Energy, European Commission. We have Bonnie Brook representing the stakeholders, let's say. And we have three projects representatives, Paraskevas, representing EasySRI that was already presented this morning, Paris, representing SMART², and Dimitris, representing, as you know, SRI to market. And my name is Sophie Dourlans-Caranta. I'm working for R2M Solution, but also for the SRI support team that has this contract with DG Energy to support the testing and implementation of the SRI with member states. So first, I would like to give the floor to Buntan to explain how the EEC is taking into account costs and benefits of implementing the SRI in policy makings and what are the current policy options under consideration. If you can click 2 times or 3 maybe, and you will see, so there are benefits, there are costs. Of course, we expect the benefits to exceed the cost somehow. And if you click 1 more time, this is, well, just this simple drawing to illustrate how the European Commission may consider this balance, of course, respecting also the principles of subsidiarity and proportionality. So, Buntan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Hello, everyone. About costs and benefits of the SRI. So where we are right now. I mean, as a little bit mentioned earlier today by Serena about the current policy of the EPBD costs, next year report, and after next year report, the implementing and delegated acts. So what we are trying to do at the commissions and of course with the support of the SRI platform is to study the options of every policy that we can take. We are of course in this current context of the implementations of the APDD costs. We have the provisions under the APBD talking about the mandatory calculations of SRI for non-residential buildings over 290 kilowatts. But we have at the same time the need or the necessity of having the framework that are simplified, that is not perceived as additional administrative burden for the user and for the member state as well, I suppose. So all of this thing has to be taken down in the equations, and as mentioned by a little bit by Christina this morning, so we are in the midst of studying all of these different options. We are very much would like to take into account all of your opinions. So the things that is done or have been done by the projects are very valuable for us. The experience from the member state as well as presented earlier on, and we are hopefully to try to take into account all of this in terms of costs and benefits and the cost of having to implementing all of this new framework or the framework that is foreseen but is still new, or the cost of having no thing of this at all. And beside this overall big line of policy change, I might say, this opportunity would allow us also to take into account any other stuff that we need to perfect the SRIs, as we just mentioned earlier. Looking forward, for example, the input from Austria that was mentioned earlier about the SRI, what we can do to make it better, I might say. Make connections to other policies that we have or are still implementing. I'm talking about at the products level, for example, the code of conduct or any other specific policy that we haven't taken into account yet in the SRI, and which we can consider as useful and should be taken into account. So all of these are to be studied as well.
Thank you very much, Buntan, for this introduction. And I propose to move to the part on the benefits. So you can click a couple of times and you'll see the benefits of this. So just to explain first, we are going to discuss the benefits, then in the second part, the cost. And at the end of each part, you will have the chance to ask some questions to the speakers. So first, concerning the benefits, there are multiple benefits of implementing the SRI, as you know. And on this slide, we wanted to have a kind of structure to present these benefits in a structured manner. So we have the benefits at building level that are illustrated or that can be directly assessed by the SRI itself with the first two functionalities of the SRI. So if you can click 2 or 3 times maybe already, so you know the first two functionalities of the SRI on energy savings, maintenance, information to occupants, comfort, etc. All these benefits that can be assessed at building level. There are also benefits for the energy grids. So this is based on the third functionality of the SRI, if you click. And so this is, of course, a very important aspect also of smart buildings and why we need smart technologies. It's also to support the grid. And there's also a third type of benefits, if you can click. This is for the EU competitiveness. So this is not reflected in an SRI assessment, but this is also a very important aspect, and we'll try also to tackle this during our panel discussion. So maybe if we start with the benefits at building level, I would like to give the floor first to Bonnie. And Bonnie, I would like to ask you how to explain the benefits of the SRI to building owners.
Is the video going to play? Okay, I just thought I had 2 minutes and the video is longer, but that's fine. So the directly affected stakeholder group would be the building owners and then building investors as well. So that's why in the working group 3, so the stakeholders working group on the platform, we have created a communication video for the impact and the value proposition, let's say, for the building owners and investors through the SMART readiness indicator. So what does it mean and what would it bring?
The SMART readiness indicator and why this is important for you as a building owner in the EU. In a fast-changing world of rising energy costs, evolving regulations, and increasing tenant expectations, what's the smartest move a building owner can make today to safeguard the building asset for tomorrow? To assist you with this, we have the SMART readiness indicator, a standardized EU framework that evaluates your building's ability to optimize its performance, enhance occupant experience, and interact with the smart grid. The SMART readiness indicator assesses the automation level of building services like heating, cooling, lighting, EV charging, and other important domains. Think of it as a scorecard for your building's ability to efficiently sense and optimize its performance. If you manage a non-residential building with over 290 kilowatts of heating, cooling, and ventilation, The SRI is expected to become mandatory. Smaller buildings and other types of buildings, like residential buildings, can also benefit from the SRI framework if you as an owner decide to implement. The SRI assessments help uncover ways to reduce energy and operational costs using smarter controls and automation. See this as your guide to relevant smart building improvements. High-performance smart-rated buildings are more appealing to tenants, investors, and future buyers, and can therefore directly impact your bottom line and long-term value. With decarbonization targets and ESG reporting growing more rigorous, the SRI provides credible, standardized evidence of your building's readiness when supporting disclosures and sustainability efforts. The SRI identifies where your building can benefit most from smart upgrades like dynamic lighting, automated heating and cooling, grid flexibility, and interoperable systems. With this knowledge, you can prioritize capital spending and service contracts where it creates the most impact, cutting waste, improving tenant comfort, and boosting performance. With data-driven insights, you can reduce operational costs, improve tenant satisfaction, and strengthen building resilience. The SRI offers you the framework to enable new insights about your building's smart readiness features and capabilities now and in the future. The SRI is not an audit. It is a roadmap to ensure that buildings become and stay more energy efficient, comfortable to tenants, and energy adaptive to the smart grid. Visit the official EU SRI web and learn more.
Thank you. Thank you very much for creating this video. Personally, I think it's very good, and it's really important to adopt the language of the stakeholders we are targeting and to mention, well, what is important to them. Maybe Paraskevas, you can also a bit elaborate on this and on what EasySRI has done in relation to understanding the building owner's viewpoint on the SRI.
Yes, sure. As EasySRI, what we did regarding that respect, we went straight to owners and we provided a structured survey plus some follow-up interviews across a few countries, of course, 3, 4 countries, I think, and we got 3 clear messages. The first one is about the value of SRI. So they like SRI when it explains how their building will behave in the energy system and turns their building into something that is smart actually, but also practical. So they require clear capabilities and evidence, of course, to show to lenders and buyers, but also the regulators per member state. The second message is about the concerns that were raised. So they want to be pragmatic, of course, they are pragmatic, and they are worried about the cost and the complexity. Also, the reliability and the maintenance and all these things that have to do with, you know, the dependency from IT and vendors to get these SRTs. And another big issue is whether the occupants of the buildings will actually use these advanced features. So they want some proof that this will actually work and they want to see it in real operation. The third clear message we received is about the tools. They don't want to stop just to the scores, showing the scores, the classes as we present them. They want to have some concrete, clear update paths for the buildings, and also see what is the payback and the risk. if they decide to upgrade their building. Also, something that we've been discussing so far is the compliance of SRI with EPC and all these involved workflows. To be on time, what's the bottom line? We have the owners that will actually engage with the SRI and this concept, the framework, when they see that the SRI is actionable, it's interoperable, and also financially legible, let's say. That is all.
Thank you. Thank you, Paraskevas. Paris, I know that also in SMART² you have been working also on the cost optimality of smartness upgrades, and this was already mentioned by Paraskevas. So can you a bit elaborate on this?
Yeah, sure. In SMART², we had several activities which brought us closer to the wider public. Indicatively, I would like to refer to the SRI Days. These were events that were organized in all 8 member states in which the project was implemented. We had over 40, it was in total 49 events that we organized across Europe. And the main question that people have is that, okay, smart building, I like the idea. How do I benefit from that? And it was always a question to relate cost optimality and energy savings with smartness. This was the main challenge, and actually one of the tasks that we had in SMART², which was also related to standardization, was to develop a methodology to monetize the benefits from upgrading the smartness of a building. We identified gaps in that case, and those gaps are mainly in the field of standardization. We do have a lot of methods for cost optimality and energy efficiency, which is the one pillar of the SRI. We do not have those standardized methods on monetizing the benefits from improving the human comfort and for the interaction with smart grids. Actually, we were able to develop and deliver a methodology that was mainly based on the cost optimality from energy efficiency with indicators that were reverse engineered. That is the allowed investment to achieve a certain SRI score based on given financial data. This was a contribution of SMART². Thank you.
Thank you, Paris. Very challenging indeed to monetize all the benefits generated by the SRI. Dimitris, what about SRI to market? This morning you mentioned some tools also, providing some recommendations on smartness upgrades. So what can you say about that?
Thank you, Sophie. Indeed, I mean, in SRI to market, we also had, similar to other projects, tasks dedicated to recommendations for building owners, and not just building owners, but building users, also facility managers, all these type of stakeholders. Because we wanted in practice to explain what SRI can bring, how people can be, how users can be benefited. It was strange to see. I mean, everybody is talking about smart buildings. If you go to technology, let's say shops, they have smart building, sessions there, and it was strange to see, interesting to see. Let's say that people outside have a completely different opinion about smart buildings, or at least they are not aware of the EPPD and the specific definition we use in EPPD. So they only think that smartness is something about changing the lights, LED systems, and things like that. So what we try to do again with interviews and workshops and communication material was to explain what this is about, but also we took an extra step. We delivered, let's say, we produced a report about specific benefits that they can have based on the technology. And we decided that this is not enough, so we make an extra mile, maybe 2. So we decided to not just have a report, but also develop a tool that we finally decided to incorporate it in our SRI platform, the quick exploitation tool I presented before. Very quickly, a user can play with some easy questions, decide on the building type, the construction age, and things like that, so that he can get a score. And then he can also have different scenarios to see how the SRI score can be upgraded with specific technologies. And then we decided to develop an extra tool, which would actually try to connect the previous experience and use data, specific data of the buildings, of the heating system and so on, to give you specific results on expected, let's say, energy savings, on cost savings, payback periods, and so on. So we really want to promote these tools. It is interesting and I mean very useful for everybody to know. Together with, for example, what Bonnie presented before, this type of material is super useful. Everybody should somehow be aware about it.
Thank you, Dimitris. Yes, indeed, we need tools and examples, a lot of things to convince all the stakeholders of the usefulness of the SRI and the benefits. If we continue with different types of benefits, in particular for energy grids, well, before that, maybe Buntan, can you clarify how the SRI relates to the push for minimum BACS requirements? Since if we want to have smart buildings, we need BACS. So this is the very first step.
I mean, the SRI itself said, since it was introduced in EPBD 2018, it has been subject to thesis and stuff. And through the negotiations and adoptions of the EPBD, we can see like a new threshold for EPBD for the SRI, which is from the outside we can always like question like why would we need to put this threshold and that threshold and why not another threshold. And one thing that we can try to have the SRI as meaningful as possible is to link it with other policies that we have in EPBD. Why not EPC and why not BACS? And that is one of the options that we are looking for in the assessments of the policy options that we have right now.
Thank you, Buntan. Coming to the impact of the SRI on energy grid and the capability of buildings to provide flexibility services. Dimitris, can you share the findings from SRI to market, maybe revealing untapped functionalities overlooked by other building assessments?
Thank you, Sophie. Yes. So first of all, for me, it is very important that the SRI captures this service. I mean, the adaptation to signals from the grid, the flexibility market. This is super important because indeed there is a strong link between, let's say, smart buildings and the capabilities of flexible markets. I think that all projects concluded that this specific, let's say, adaptation to signals from the grid, this specific feature is the less advanced, and this is where, let's say, all buildings lack. It really depends on the market, on the member state. So the situation is completely different, let's say, in Greece than in Netherlands, for example, where the market is advanced. So this is an area where we can improve. And it is also important to say here that, for example, and that is why indeed we need to have an interplay between EPCs and SRI. That was another conclusion, not just because of the benefits that administrative costs that we discussed before and so on, about integrating SRI to EPCs. I think exactly because the EPCs do not really capture BACS or flexibility services or all these demand and response features, SRI can actually do that. So I think that by merging these two instruments together, these tools, EPCs and SRI, we can have a better, let's say, perspective of the building.
Thank you, Dimitris. Paris, what about the findings from SMART² regarding the impact of the SRI on flexibility markets?
It's widely agreed that the weakest pillar of the SRI currently is the third one for all buildings. That is their ability to interact with smart grids. This is something that we have seen in almost all cases that we evaluated in SMART². In SMART², and this will be presented in the next session, we have developed a very clever AI-based way of collecting data from buildings, the so-called call center. And in terms of that, we were able to assess over 5,000 buildings across Europe, targeted in 10 member states. And the general outcome out of this assessment is that in those member states that we have enhanced features of smart grids, these the buildings score better with regard to the grid flexibility. And the main conclusion that we extracted was that we might, and this is also integrated into the Cyprus testing stage report, which is to be finalized in the next weeks, that we might consider to be more flexible for the flexibility of the buildings in the grid. That is giving a smaller weight, at least to those member states where the smart grids features are still not that developed. For example, in Cyprus, we have minimum elements of smart grids and buildings there score very low. So this was the outcome of the analysis, which was implemented under the call center activity that we had in SMART². Thank you.
Thank you, Paris. A very good insight indeed, and there is some room for member states indeed to adapt the SRI methodology. Paraskevas, also this morning you mentioned some results on flexibility. So how can EasySRI help in that regard?
Yes, I would agree with the other speakers that actually flexibility is the main pain point for the SRI scores. So we see for EasySRI, we actually see the SRI playing a very practical role in opening buildings to the flexibility markets. We think actually SRI being something like a flexibility passport for the buildings, it will help make a site or a building's ability to shift load and make this actually visible and comparable. How can this be done? Of course, by assessing the controls, the sub-metering, let's say, capabilities, the storage, the EV charging. All these are aspects that can be linked with the flexibility of the sites. Then we also value the flexibility explicitly, if I'm allowed to say, not just for the efficiency. For example, when you want to preheat on renewables or shift the cooling load, this will, let's say, lift the kilowatts and the consumption for a building, but it will lower the system costs and the emissions. So SRI, we believe, should surface and weight those services when they exist, of course. Next, we connect assessment to investment, as I said earlier. So SRI points to specific controls and metering capabilities and interoperability upgrades for the buildings. And of course, these are the keys to unlock demand response and also the local balancing, if it is possible, and also frame them with some basic capital expenses or operating expenses for the building owners. So another mention regarding, the link of SRI with EPC, because it's very important. We foresaw this aligning of SRI with the EPCs and the operational data of buildings to cut on the transaction costs and let the aggregators and the DSOs onboard the buildings at scale This is something very important that we need to look for. So, in short, we framed the importance for clear signals, proper evaluation, some roadmap for investments, and these, we believe, will enable the easy market entry of SRI.
Thank you, Paraskevas. You mentioned demand response. So I would like to turn to Bonnie, who is also representing the SMART² Association, so representing the flexible demand management industry. So what's your viewpoint on this?
Yes, actually, all my fellow panelists have already mentioned aspects of it, especially Paraskevas. He almost took my words without actually previous preparation together. So, two things. In order to build the energy system that we have to move to, if we want to cut carbon emissions, we do need the smart demand and the smart supply. So we need the whole system to be smart in order to be able to respond to very various signals. And this is especially important for the energy security of Europe. So from the point of view of stakeholders, building owners are not going to invest in something that is not going to be ready to get some gain, let's say. So they have to have some benefit immediately in financial terms in order to make investments. Sometimes they would make long-term investments, but that requires very stable policy environment, regulatory environment. They have to be sure that this will stay this way in order to make long-term investments. So, nevertheless, knowing that Europe is going in this direction, to be ready to participate in this new energy system, people have to start understanding at least what it means and how to do it. And in this case, on behalf of SMART², I would say this third key functionality is really, really important because it gives the visibility of this flexible demand management industry, because these are aggregators and suppliers and technology providers and market operators, and it's very diverse, the membership of SMART². In order to, even for these different stakeholders to invest in their businesses, it is important that the Smart Readiness Indicator acknowledges equally the energy flexibility of a smart building.
Thank you, Bonnie. You mentioned energy security at European level, but let's move also to the competitiveness of the EU economy. And so I would like to ask Dimitris, so you are coordinating the road mapping activity task force of the SRI platform. So are you considering this impact on EU competitiveness in this work?
Coordinating, first of all, supporting Paul Weide with this, with preparing the roadmap, but still, I would say yes and no. First of all, I mean, when it goes to competitiveness, EU competitiveness, I think it's needless to say that the SRI, which is both a policy tool but a market tool as well, and if well implemented and combined also with financial incentives and so on, it's a strong push towards smart technologies. And smart technologies are also something that is highly promoted by many, let's say, European companies. this is something that, yes, I would say that there is a direct link between the SRI and smart technologies, and that is a big, a huge push for, let's say, EU competitiveness. One thing that we discuss in this roadmap that you mentioned before is something different, but still relevant. It's the single market needs. We shouldn't forget that in the EU, we all under the same market umbrella, the single market needs, and SRI should also operate under this, let's say, transparency and clear rules. So here, I'm talking about, for example, the need for transparency, clear rules, clear, let's say, understanding of what a smart service is. And we have, let's say, the previous experience to rely upon the energy services, let's say, the energy services framework, or the EPCs, the energy performance certificates framework. And this is something similar, I think, that we should also be discussing when we go to SRI. So we need, let's say, standardized procedures so that we are all under the same rules. We need cybersecurity, very important, and I think this is the discussion in Brussels right now. Interoperability. So all this will create a stable framework for everybody to work in the same system. So this is something that we're working, and it is indeed very, very interesting for the market as a whole and the EU competitiveness. I think they are also.
Thank you, Dimitris. Bonnie, maybe can you share very briefly the viewpoint from the smart building industry in Europe?
Yes, so Dimitris started with a couple of the points. So the common standardized elements of the SRI framework are absolutely critical for the EU competitiveness, because if the stakeholders that have to deliver the SRI on the ground, if they have to jump over obstacles to basically, one of them is 27 different flavors of regulations, is something that does not help the industry. So then, of course, the efforts are put in something that, in a way, reduces the potential or the capability of the industry to be competitive at international level as well. Now, talking about innovation, however, on the other side, I think that through the Smart Readiness Indicator, that will spark a lot of innovation in Europe. And then Europe would be able to, so talking about clean tech industry, Europe would be even more competitive than today with clean tech technologies, property tech technologies, services as well, that could be exported when needed.
Thank you, Bonnie. Buntan, maybe can you react on this on behalf of DG Energy?
Yes, maybe I'm a bit biased, but I'm coming from DG Energy, and for me, energy is very important. So when we're talking about competitive, for once, totally agree with all has just mentioned. Competitive in the sense that manufacturers who are involved in the smart technology, smart tools, and smart equipment has to be promoted, because SRI by itself is what is a measurements that we are using, or we hope to use for orientating the policy, the public policy to a better place, I may say. So using SRI, I can see that it can encourage the the use of smart desks and the use of smart equipment in the buildings, hence encouraging the industry. But at the same time, when we're talking about the competitiveness at the European level, we should talk also about the industry as a whole, and industry has to work with energy. So seeing smart indicator helping the household or non-residential as well to reuse the energy, use the energy more efficiently, be smart and be smart in the demand, and also have also for the supply of the energy and interconnection with the grids. It's also one of the main components of the SOI that we should not be ignored.
Thank you, Buntan. We have some minutes to take questions from the audience on the benefits, and then we will discuss more briefly the costs also of implementation of the SRI. Are there any questions from the audience here in the room or from the online audience? Maybe to break the ice, I'm asking Bonnie, so you have prepared with Working Group 3 this video, so are you preparing other videos? And if yes, on which topic?
I'm so happy that you like it, because that gives us motivation to continue. And I heard from all these projects actually before that this is a weak point, and we need to raise the awareness throughout different stakeholder groups. So the next group that we are considering targeting with the next video would be the building operators. So the facility managers, building operators, they have different tasks. So, and there is probably a role of other ones, but certainly that would be the next one. We're trying to, I mean, all of them are important and play a role. However, we are looking at who is going to be affected first.
Thank you, Bonnie.
And how to help there.
We have another question here.
Erwin Cornelis, representing ANEC Consumer Organization, and let me focus to the residential buildings. Perhaps not the first focus of SRI, but still, well, residential buildings were included in quite some countries, and some cases have been developed. And if the SRI results, the results of the assessments were presented to the building owners in the residential sector or the tenants, what were actually the benefits they saw from the results? What were the insights that they gained from these results?
Yeah, Paris?
Okay, a very interesting slide was shown earlier, demonstrating the fact that around 15% of the assessments that were carried out for the national testing stages concerned dwellings. And also concerning the legislation and how we envision and we aspire the implementation of the SRI across Europe, we are starting with larger buildings, with buildings that have an installed capacity that exceeds 290 kilowatts. So this is a good question, and actually this also brings to the table a discussion for something that might be developed in the future, that is SRI, which is more adapted to certain types of buildings. Because in larger buildings, we have other systems, we have the space for automation and control, we have space for BMS. This is a must, based also on the EPBD and on the previous version of 2018. By definition, we know that in dwellings, the SRI scores lower. The reason is that we do not have this level of advanced systems in dwellings. And this brings again to the question of cost optimality. So a building tenant or a building landlord should have, let's say, a motivation to proceed and upgrade the smartness of the building. And unfortunately, as of now, this motivation is only the cost optimality. That is why we need to further, because we want our buildings to become smarter. So we don't give any space or any excuse to building owners not to proceed in this direction. But to my point of view, and from what we saw in SMART², it takes more effort, more time to develop more comprehensive approaches in cost optimality and smartness. We have the 5220 standard that gives some solutions there. But again, these are only related to energy efficiency. So we have to monetize the human comfort and the interaction with smart grids in a better way so that we are more convincing to dwellings and smaller buildings.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. mention also that there is a direct link, I think, with Paris mentioned comfort, but here we should also say, let's say, about health or environmental quality. These aspects are really important, especially for the residential sector, but also for other type of buildings. And I think this is also an area that we should also study more and maybe try to make better links with, our reporting and awareness campaigns.
Thank you, Dimitris. A last question.
Hello, my name is Judith Kockert from the Buildings Performance Institute Europe, and we're currently involved in the Bluebird project, which seeks out to enhance and empower users to provide flexibility to the grid. So very important, this aspect. You mentioned that currently the benefits or the monetary benefits are only through the optimization, and we're looking at business models on how to enable flexibility to provide another payback for also smart readiness. And we have identified already that one of the main problems is that there is no market for flexibility in lots of member states, and that's also depending on the EPBD implementation. And we've seen, unfortunately, in Spain that a regulation has been cancelled this fall that was going to improve the situation and define aggregators and communities. Did you have in any of the projects contacts to TSOs or to potential actors that can enable the market, that can design or make it happen? And what was the feedback? What was the learning from that? Thank you.
Maybe I can answer this one because I'm involved in these discussions in France. And I would like to refer to several initiatives that are conducted in France. There is a GoFlex initiative. That's a new indicator also that can quantify the flexibility potential of a building, so in kilowatt and kilowatt hour. So contrary to the SRI that provide an assessment of capability, here it's a quantification. There are other initiatives also led by the French TSO, in collaboration with the industry, with the DSO, etc. So things are moving, and I think the situation is different in every country. So I'm sorry, because maybe the other speakers want also to say something to illustrate with other countries, but we will discuss this maybe at the lunch break. And I would like to move to the next part of the panel discussion. So we will also discuss the cost. So if you can move to the next slides. So we will discuss this more briefly. And if you can click a couple of times. So concerning the cost of the SRI, we are structuring this as two main parts. The cost of conducting an SRI assessment. So this cost in general will be borne by the building owners. There will be some assessors that need to do the work, paid by the building owners, possibly with some subsidies. Well, and there are the administrative costs. So everything that the member states have to put in place in order to implement the SRI. So the training programs, the certification of assessors, the quality control also is super important. So in order to illustrate this aspect, the administrative costs, so Dimitris, can you very briefly share the experience that you have gained with SRI to market?
Thank you, Sophie. So in SRI to market, we started from the beginning, if you remember from my presentation before, by analyzing exactly all the features needed to have a full SRI scheme. So one of these elements were also, the administrative costs that national authorities actually have to undertake. It's not easy. And we also realized that in some cases, at least in the beginning of the test phases, or even before, many member states thought that this is an extra administrative burden, and they couldn't, let's say, realize from the beginning the added value that SRI could bring. Then we had some case studies about the exact administrative costs, and especially with regards to the integration with EPC systems. We analyzed in one deliverable how different scenarios, the solo scenario, the fully integrated scenario, or the mild-integrated scenario, can actually also reduce and in what ways the administrative costs for monitoring, quality control, for setting up the assessment tools or the training schemes. All these are very costly if you develop them from the beginning. And one other point is that we also realize that, yes, we realize that it is not only about EPCs. You can further reduce the administrative cost if you consider SRI as part of a more holistic, let's say, policy. So SRI should be embodied in other policies as well. For example, in digital logbooks where this exists, in funding schemes. So you don't necessarily need to have separate funding schemes for SRI, but you could integrate it in already existing schemes and so on. So administrative costs are there, but you can minimize them if you consider SRI as part, of a more holistic approach.
Yes, thank you, Dimitris. Paris, what about the role of standardization in minimizing also the administrative cost of implementing the SRI?
Well, a major aspect in our work as engineers is related to the contribution of standards. And in those cases where we have standards, our life as engineers become much easier. This was something that we identified in SMART², and that is why we committed ourselves in the project, and we were able to deliver that. And this is a success story of SMART², to deliver a SEN workshop report that describes the required steps for an on-site audit. And actually, this is a gap that we have at the SRI. And actually, we believe that the outcome was very important because at the end of the day, it was also adopted by TC 247, Working Group 7, with the purpose to become a standard and to be upgraded to its next level. Now, given this experience that we gained from this procedure, we were able to align the work required for an SRI audit with the work that is currently being implemented for an energy audit. And if we would discuss about the assessment costs, we would see them being comparative to what we have for an energy audit. Of course, all projects capture the dimension of integrating the SRI audit either into the EPC audit or to the energy audit. And actually, in SMART², we were able to develop and deliver a report that describes the common aspects of the EPC and the SRI and what can be jointly collected. To close with, I would like to mention that what we have seen from SMART² was our inspiration for the next project, the Smarter EPC, Sofia project that you coordinate, in which we exactly discuss this aspect, the integration of the EPC into the SRI. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paris. Paraskevas, what extra administrative savings can be generated by the easy SRI approach?
Yes, we believe that easy SRI cuts some admin work by doing what? By making the building smart readiness data persistent and also reusable. So according to our design and implementation, a single building record, you might consider it as a logbook, something like that about the building, ties all SRI info to this specific asset, to this building. So you don't need to make any reassessments for the building. You rather do it for the new SRI assessments. So these reassessments, let's call them that way, are actually delta updates to the building. They don't come as fresh data insertions or additions to the building. Of course, a standardized delta schema supports the autofill from autofilling prospects. You can add SRI data from Excel's example. But we also have some data validations that check for completeness of your data, the formatting, some other cross-field checks. And this is something quite important, I believe, because it cuts down on back and forth corrections for your data. So we also have some version history that shows to you what changes and why it changes. And this is something that makes audits, checks, and in the future, let's say, the incentive verification much easier and faster. As you all said, the other speakers, that way we actually foresee the linkage with the EPC becoming quite easier and keeps somehow the national and the EU reporting, I dare to say, simple across different portfolios of assets. To sum up, what is the net result of what we achieved? We get actually fewer forms, fewer errors, and faster approvals. And this will lower the verification and also the reporting costs at scale.
Thank you, Paraskevas. Paris, according to your experience from SMART², so what can you say concerning the duration of an SRI assessment and the corresponding cost for the building owner?
Well, in the SMART², we were able to demonstrate a quick assessment with method A, which was also the basis for the call center that we have developed, according to which the building owner, through a procedure of 20 very simplified questions, can deliver a first assessment based on method A. If we also read the regulations and what Vito delivered to us, method A should not be an assessment that has a duration of more than 30 minutes. This is what we have in our documents. So obviously it depends on the method that we follow. If we go for a detailed method B, that could even take days to reach a conclusion. But for the quick method, things can go very fast. I also saw this morning Paraskevas describing that you could even deliver method A in a few minutes. And this was a similar conclusion from EasySRI. So again, it depends on the level of detail. It depends on the purpose. It depends on the scope. And what concerns the costs, I believe this was analyzed in the previous question, which is related to the way we conduct the assessment and the information that we have. But for sure, we cannot give a certain price. It's that much per square meter. This, I think, it will take more time for the markets to reach these conclusions and deliver these metrics.
Yes, thank you, Paris, for this insight. So Paraskevas, indeed, this morning you presented this SRI Express tool. So what's your conclusion concerning, well, the range concerning the duration of an SRI assessment in general, using this tool or using other tools? So what can you share about that?
Yes, sure. As you said earlier, here the aim is to reduce the assessment time, the SRI assessment time. So simply put, again, the SRI cuts on the assessment by fixing the front end regarding the SRI technical framework or the auditing process. So the SRI Express tool that I showed you earlier today asks only what matters from the end user. It asks once, and I dare to say in a smart order. So we fix that in a way so it's smart and easy for the user to follow. And this adapts to the building context, and you may skip some sections that are not relevant with your asset. So I think this is quite important. And sometimes with this flow of the SRI Express tool, you can also use some sensible defaults for the assessment. So we also reuse data according and abiding with a schema, a consistent schema, and you can also put resources, pull data from existing resources, as I said earlier, from Excel sheets directly, or even duplicate your assessments that you have contacted. You can duplicate them and then update just specific fields for your new assessment. So this is something that will allow you to avoid some retyping and also keep all the schemas aligned. We also have built-in data checks and quality checks, and this is something that helped us during the development to catch some inconsistencies quite early and reduce the reworking later. With a guided flow, in general, when you want to start the process and finish it, it means that you have, let's say, less specialist effort when you insert your data, and we believe that you also get lower training overhead, and of course this results in more consistent outputs, of course. So to put it in a nutshell, the effect we achieved, I think, is shorter preparation time, smoother site visits, at least for the SRI platform, cleaner inputs, and also faster sign off. So you enter fast, you enter quite easily, you do your job, and you sign off without, cutting any corners, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Paraskevas. It's really very useful, I think, everything that the projects have been doing to consider all these aspects. And I would like to give the floor maybe to Bonnie to conclude on costs. So what's your vision on the cost of implementing the SRI? And we will conclude on this.
Okay, so first of all, very good inputs already. I just want to build on them. Apart from all the certificates that were mentioned and audits and assessments where synergies could be used, the building renovation passport is another one. And actually with the SRI included in it, you can include it in the roadmap for the asset. That would be a good tool to do it. So it's not just one-off, but also a continuous. And this is something that is important to the owners of the buildings or the investors. Also about the data interoperability in a way, this will reduce immensely the costs. And I'm not talking only about building information, I'm talking about the data coming from the buildings. When you have a smart building, you have this data. And then you can use it in different assessments. So actually, the other assessment might gain from the introduction of the SRI, which will negate the cost. On the two sides that I see on the screen in front of me, so the administrative costs could be reduced by actually standardizing and having a common approach across Europe rather than 27 administrative costs. And also standardization can help the market players to make it reliable and effective introduction. On the assessment costs, this is a matter of business models. So let the market play, and there will be different ways of covering the assessment costs. That much about that, but I just want to bring the other sentence that we've discussed. So ask yourselves, what would be the costs of not introducing the smart readiness indicator? What would that cost Europe? So, and we have here, you know that 75% of buildings in Europe are not efficient. We know that, that's a fact. And this is only on the energy efficiency side. let alone the other ones that we still have to measure and optimize and evaluate. So, and the energy transition is at stake as well.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for this very interesting perspective. So I propose to conclude this panel discussion. Maybe we can go to the next slide. So you have heard about what the projects have done. So you can see here in this table just a couple of deliverables and achievements from the project. And this will be included in the slides that we are going to publish. So of course you can check these reports and these tools later on. I think the projects have done a lot. And in some cases, more than expected, I think. We also discussed that there is still a lot to be done to continue to pursue the effort in terms of standardization, to evaluate the benefits of smart buildings and of the SRI. So to monetize all these benefits, it's also a lot of work. We also mentioned a lot the integration with other schemes, EPCs in particular, but also other schemes in order, of course, to have to reach, let's say, an integrated approach of the assessment of building performance. So in principle, we wanted to take also some questions, but since we have the lunch coming, I propose to stop here, and of course the speakers will be available for your question during the lunch break. Thank you so much.